did some last-minute changes. Change was not in the cover picture, so you can enjoy some of the recent buffalo ewes, which I hopefully will attract many of you to our country. And well, thank you, organizers, for putting together this wonderful symposium and for inviting me, giving us the opportunity to me and my group to present our recent work. We still feel like newcomers in the aging field. I was recruited to the field by Judy, and since then I remain terribly thankful to her, because this is the most interesting twist in my professional career. But as any newcomer, you start from learning from those who are predecessors. And I will tell you the story how our learning from our predecessors allowed us to find something new, which hopefully was either overlooked or maybe not noticed by them. So what are we trying to do? So what we can do and what we could do before was to, using phenotypes, screen chemicals or biologics which would change this phenotype and potentially with translational opportunities. We have been doing that multiple times quite successfully in the cancer area, and now, and many others, trying to convert what we learn about aging into ability to treat it. So, and in fact, one thing which is really shocking, and it was very well highlighted yesterday in all three talks, is that regardless of all the fantastic achievements of medicine during the last 100 years, which overall increased the average lifespan about 50 years, did not increase the maximum longevity at all. We only are coming closer and closer to that cliff, bringing to more and more people there, indicating that those clocks which are ticking in us and determining the limit of longevity is still has not been discovered. And I think Judy did a fantastic work educating community that at least a hypothesis can be built about this clock, which is testable, and this is senescent cell hypothesis, and many of us are exploring that, including us. So we're using mice as a model, and I don't need much introduction here. So this is the curves of death of humans and mice, natural death, and they are very similar. Many manifestations of aging in mice are similar to humans, so we're using mice. But the first thing we started, as I said, just repeating what was known and already taken as almost as an axiom. I think one of the rare things in aging field where many people agreed on is that inflammation is the common denominator for many manifestations of aging, and the word inflammaging very nicely reflects that. So we were absolutely sure that if we take blood from old mice and compare it with young ones, we will see multiple indications of inflammation. Our results, which were repeated multiple times, actually came as a shock, because it appears that healthy mice with more than 2 years old, if they are maintained in nice, clean American vivarium under control of IACUC, have less cytokines in their blood than the young mice of similar strain. So this is pretty much, this is 76 entries in array, and the vast majority of them are decreased as steady state levels in old mice. However, if there is anything left from inflammaging, for us, we're very relieved to see that the moment we stimulate these mice with anything, it can be LPS, flagellin, or lipopeptide of mycoplasma, you see significantly higher response than in young mice, indicating that the steady state level is low, however, the inducibility is much higher. So that actually allowed us to kind of revisit the idea of inflammaging. So inflammaging in laboratory mouse is manifested as higher responsiveness of old organs to environmental pro-inflammatory stimuli, rather than an increased endogenous inflammation. In clean environment, base levels of biomarkers of inflammation are lower in old than in young healthy mice, And our current hypothesis is that in old mice, the ability of the immune system to respond to some endogenous stimuli is simply exhausted. And this, as you will see how this a simple idea evolved with our work. So by the way, almost every statement here is highlighted by several posters. I think we are demonstrating 6 here. And I will encourage you to look at the details of this work in one of them by Gitlin et al. So, among potential endogenous stimuli of inflammation which may exhaust our immune system, we were obviously very intrigued with senescent cells for many reasons, and we all know them. One of them came from our own work done in collaboration with Vera Gorbanova, Andrei Siluanov's group in Rochester, demonstrating that animals which are known to be, extraordinarily long-living, such as blind mole rats, actually do not have senescence, and their cells do not senesce in culture. They instead undergo interferon-induced apoptosis, and that actually gave us an inspiration that maybe indeed senescent cells are poisoning us and thereby inducing aging. Well, of course, but definitely the biggest inspiration one can get from the works of Baker et al., 2 of them from Van Dersen, Kirkland, and others, who demonstrated that physical eradication of p16 positive cells, which are interpreted as senescent in animals and which demonstrate traits of aging, leads to a certain degree of rejuvenation. And that leads to this extremely promising picture. It's a big promise created by this work, that senescent cells can be eradicated and this can revert process of aging. So this obviously was the critical moment when many entered the field, but we also did a little earlier than that, and we decided to use an empirical approach, simply to select what we can do, to select chemicals which can kill senescent cells and see what they will do. But in order to do that, you need to answer several questions, one of which is to be prepared to measure the state of health of mice. So the way we did it, we simply adapted the frailty index, which was initially invented for evaluation of human health, then applied to mice, and then by Marina Antok adapted in a more objective way to mouse health. So today we're measuring 16 parameters which allow us to build calibration curves, which is quite different for males and females, which allow us then to take any mouse of that particular strain, measure it, and tell what this mouse objective age is that much based on the projection to this curve. So, well, a frailty index is something which I will be broadly referring to. Then we have to start screening. However, there are tons of different tissues, different species, different ways to turn cells into senescence, how to choose them. So in order to be comprehensive and not to lose something, we decided to introduce in our screening multiple filters, and you will see how we did it. But in all these cases, we take proliferating cells, senesce them by treating with DNA damaging agent or by transducing with dominant oncogene. And when they become senescent, that requires a certain number of days before they become bona fide senescent with a plethora of traits which Julia recently listed to you. And then you put them all into state which allow proliferating cells to stay in quiescence at low serum, so that you're comparing cells which are all non-dividing, and you simply test chemicals in 3 types of cells: senescent, quiescent, and cells which were freshly treated but did not become senescent yet. So, and we used a big list of treatments which induce senescence, trying to not to be in the trap that we are studying some peculiar artifact. So, and obviously we're using different tissues, cells transformed and non-transformed, and so on. Well, however, you always have a potential, you are studying laboratory artifacts, so you need to have access to in vivo material. And again, in order to do that, we decided, okay, it's very simple. We just simply take the mouse, you irradiate it. We decided to give very high dose of radiation and then do bone marrow transplantation to allow this mouse to survive. Dose is so high that practically any cell would have certain degree of DNA damage. and then isolate senescent cells from these mice. And it appears that it worked really well. Mice after 11, 12, 13 grays of total body radiation happily survived total bone marrow transplantation, and then when you put their fibroblasts, whatever organ in culture, they happily senesce. So, by noticing that, we decided to say, aha, we're impatient, why should we wait 2.5 years? Maybe these mice will start dying much more quickly because they consist of senescent cells in their mesenchyme. The result actually appeared to be quite strange. So look at this. This is the standard curve of death of C57 black mice. Mice which we named TBI plus BMT, total body radiation following bone marrow transplantation, they started dying about 28% earlier. However, when we measured their, which means that their life indeed become only 28% shorter. Not terribly much, provided that you're irradiating them here. But most importantly, when we measured their frailty index in the year following radiation, it appears that it is actually even better in mice which underwent radiation. So which means that these mice have shorter but quite happy life. And this was, of course, completely unexpected, very well reproduced. And we had a question, why senescent cells, which presumably accumulated with radiation, do not start affecting health immediately? So that brought us to the question, where are you senescent cells in vivo? So we borrowed mice from Nat Sharpless from North Carolina, which have B16 knocked in with luciferase and heterozygotes, so these mice are quite normal. And we found that the B16 is accumulated in them actually well after the first year of age. So it's not like gradual accumulation, it's quite sharp. So meaning that for a long time we do not see much senescent cells. But even more surprisingly was that when we radiated these mice with huge dose of radiation, 11-13 grays, and many weeks after that, you irradiate at 10 weeks of age, 40 weeks, we look at them, and there are absolutely no senescent cells accumulated. So, at the same time, the same mice at 98 weeks of age are bright luminescent, indicating that in principle something is ongoing. Well, maybe you can find traces of the senescent cells in their transcriptome. So we isolated RNA from different organs, did RNA sequencing and analyzed it with compared old, young, and these TBI BMT mice. It appears that TBI BMT mice practically indistinguishable from their aged mice control, while old mice from young mice differ tremendously, and very little is in common between them. Finally, these mice do not behave as old mice when you put LPS in them. They do not have overreaction to that. So which means that according to all parameters, these mice do not have senescent cells, not at the level of transcription, at the level of cytokines, and at the level of inducibility of cytokines. And in their tissues, we fail to see any SA beta gal cells. So, but at the same time, you take these mice regardless when. You can take them a year after radiation. Every organ, whatever you put in culture, the cells crawl out of the pieces, and at the moment they attempt to divide, they get arrested forever and acquire full-blown senescent phenotype. This is amazing. So the mouse lives all its life having 100% of cells in its mesenchyme incapable of divisions, but it lives without any manifestation besides shorter lifespan. So we were very intrigued, and we looked what is happening with these cells. Do they activate DNA damage at the moment of plating in culture? No. It appears that they live with DNA damage. So this is a tunnel staining of normal lungs of these mice done under condition when you can detect even one break in DNA. And you see that about 25% of cells in lungs of these mice, half a year after radiation, have DNA breaks detectable with zero DNA damage response. The moment you put them in culture, they activate DNA damage response, full-blown, RED51, 53BP1, gamma-2X, and go into senescence. So that brought us to a new concept of dormant senescent prone cells. So we came up with the idea that mammal, after following systemic genotoxic stress, accumulates in its mesenchyme cells which never bothered to activate DNA damage, live without knowing that DNA damage occurred, and only activate this DNA damage when they attempt to divide. So that brought us to multiple ideas. First, of course, is that those who are passed through chemotherapy and radiation therapy should be filled with these cells. Second, what do these cells mean? They probably be like a mines in us, which can explode any moment. What we can and should we avoid doing? So in order to do that, we start doing different experiments, trying to wake these cells up and turn them into senescence in vivo. Well, of course, number one which came to mind was wounding. If you put the inorganic alum salt subcutaneously into the mouse, you create artificial sterile wound, and immediately you start seeing SA beta gal positive cells around that, which is significantly more abundant in mice which were DSPC than mice which were never irradiated. So something like this would be what we would not want to do, but systemically. Because of course one little wound would not really give us much, besides the fact that wound healing is really impaired. In this case it's already punch biopsy mode of wounding. You see that in normal mice it gets healed really quickly. By day 10 it's all gone, while mice which are DSPC, it's severely delayed and it actually heals without forming a proper scar. Well, but the real phenotype came when we put these mice on high-fat diet. The moment you put them on high-fat diet, something changes in them, and in about 3-4 months, these all mice are dead, while control mice from the same diet continue living a normal life, and before death, their frailty index went significantly up. Well, we all know, thanks to Jim Kirtland and others from adipose tissue field, that by putting organism on the high-fat diet, lots of mesenchymal precursors, adipocyte precursors, turn into proliferation, and which probably is creating a flood of senescent cells, which potentially are causing all this phenotype. What else is wrong with these mice? You can inject these mice with tumor cells intravenously, and you will have about 40 times more engraftment in lungs than in normal mice. 40 times more. However, the puzzle came even here. There are 40 times more tumors, but they die not earlier than mice which have only few nodules. Why? It appears that these tumors, when you put them subcutaneously, they reach the size of about 2-3 millimeters and stop growing for a long, long time, prolonging life of these mice, simply because they have problems of building stroma, because there are not enough mesenchymal precursor to make tumor volume and continue growing. So this is what we learned, and well, but that did not answer our questions. Where are your senescent cells? Because even though there are plenty of dormant, they cannot be all dormant. Sometimes something divides; they should appear. Where are they going? So the idea was that maybe somebody is eating them. To try to find if this is true or not, we did very simple experiments. We simply labeled senescent cells, put them into mice, and tested how quickly they disappear. And we found that senescent cells indeed disappear much faster than quiescent, meaning that probably their secretory phenotype is doing something to make them more attractive for that predator who eats them. So in order to see who is that predator, we decided to make a trap. To make a trap, we put senescent cells into alginate beads. The transparent polymer balls embedded with live senescent cells, which stay alive for weeks, and you can put them intraperitoneally. The moment you put them in, there is no more disappearance of senescent cells, they stay alive, meaning that that one who kills them cannot reach them anymore. And then what we did, these are our beads. We put them subcutaneously, and 2 weeks later we take them out together with other cells in the lavage. And when we analyze these cells, and here you see that all these beads now are covered with these capsules, it appears that vast majority of cells around them are very interesting subclass of macrophages, which we named SAM, senescent associated macrophages. And these SAMs, they appear to be very interesting in many ways, but probably the most shocking one is that they appear to carry two major biomarkers of senescent cells. They appear to be beta-gal positive, and they were luciferase positive. P16 they activated. So, because when you put these beads into this P16 look mice, they start bright as bulbs in 2 weeks after they see these things. And these things is because of this macrophages. Okay, then natural question occurred. What proportion of what we see in very old mice are actually SAMs, and which proportion are really senescent cells? I have no answer to this question even today, but I know one thing, that if you put into very old mice clodronate is a reagent which kills selectively macrophages, the very big proportion of their signal disappears within 2 days, meaning that at least significant proportion of what gives you luminescence in old mice are actually macrophages. And especially obvious in fat. You see that this is the fat, visceral fat, white fat from old mice. This is after clodronate, it becomes snow white, and all these blue cells are gone. So at least those cells which are luminescent and beta-gal positive are predominantly macrophages, at least in the fat. I can tell you that in many other organs the degree of reduction is significantly less, meaning that maybe in other organs proportion of senescent cells is high. However, this question remains open, and I would very strongly be interested to know what is the real proportion there. So, well, I have no time to go into SAMs and into response of organ to senescent cells, because I have another story to tell you. But there are 2 posters, one by Brendan Hall and the other with David Frescas et al. In this conference, which are actually addressing these questions. So now, where we are after we learned these things. We had a paradigm which we liked very much, that the DNA damage occurring in our body due to endogenous factors and exogenous altogether translated into 3 types of response. DNA repair, senescence, and apoptosis. And senescence through SASP leads to inflammation. So, well, we have a number of problems with this thing. So, first of all, there is lack of senescent cells in vivo after total body radiation. There is no senescent cells in tissues until late in life. We have delayed health decline in TBI mice, not consistent with that tremendous. I see your body language. So, treat me like Judy, okay? You were much milder here. This is the picture which we believe is true today. So, we believe that endogenous and exogenous DNA damage is translated into 2 types of cells which are actually need to be treated as garbage. Senescent cells and apoptosis. At any given time, you see almost nothing of them because each of them has its own innate immunity garbage disposal. Good part of these are senescent-associated macrophages. So, with time, and this creates the clot, because this time this particular garbage can be actually exhausted, and as a result of that, when senescent cells start accumulating, and remains of the malfunctioning immune system and accumulated senescent cells create together poisoning of tissues and systemic problems leading to aging. So, but what is happening with TBI animals? So you have much higher exogenous flow of DNA damaged cells. You have huge amount of DSPC, which are not dangerous yet, but this disposal is in danger because it's already becoming exhausted, and as a result of that, you have a premature stop in ability of it to function. If you add hot-fat diet, it activates DSPCs. They start adding another flood of senescent cells from this depot, and this leads to premature aging. So by putting significant extra load in the senescent cells eradicating machinery, total body radiation exhausts it prematurely, and hot-fat diet adds even more. I will finish in just 1 minute by saying is that based on all this, we created a screening system which allowed us to address every of these questions in order to select the compound which would possess properties of being universal anti-senescence compound, which would kill every senescent cell regardless of its origin, and at the same time being effective as reprogrammer of senescent-associated macrophages. it's because they are not senescent. They are just programmed as a physiological response. We isolated this compound. It is named EBS 3899. It nicely kills senescent cells selectively. It removes luciferase P16 and beta-galactosidase macrophages. It can kill senescent cells from the mixture. It blocks ability of senescent cells to stimulate metastases. It helps radiation to kill tumors because radiation induces senescence in tumors. And most importantly, when given to mice at the 89th week of age, to males of NIH Swiss mice, only for 1 week, 5 injections, that significantly improved their lifespan and health span because their frailty index improved. So, we know the mechanism of action. The mechanism of action is different from navitoclast. It's another type of apoptosis. It's apoptosis, but this apoptosis is caspase 8 dependent and involves death receptors. Finally, how do we see aging today? So is there any sense of dealing with senescent cells? Yes. This is how we believe aging in old frail organism looks. Plenty of senescent cells, plenty of SAMs. You put senolytic drugs, kill senescent cells by turning them into apoptosis. So you are basically changing garbage sink from this one, which is already not working, into the one which is operating. As a result, you can have partial health improvement and increased lifespan. So there are plenty of other targets in this system. We are working with that with the help of this group of people. Thank you very much.
Why are these SAMs deleterious? Why is it that when you eliminate them, you get improved health span and lifespan? What are they doing that's bad?
I do not know. I know only based on the work of Baker et al. And yours, that when you eradicate cells which express P16, you automatically eradicate them because they are they express they will be susceptible to get cyclovir because they express P16. So when you kill these cells, you kill both SAMs and senescent cells. Today you cannot distinguish whom you kill. And you cannot, and from what I know, I cannot say that you can make an accurate conclusion that the all biological phenomena which you are seeing are actually stemming from killing senescent cells, but not SAMs. You at least need to consider that they also can contribute to the process. We know what they secrete. They secrete the spectrum of cytokines, which is quite similar to SAMs. So, all right.
Just a quick question. You say you radiate between 11 and 13 gray, and then you demonstrated that mesenchymal turnover was significantly ablated. I was just wondering, how do these mice survive GI syndrome?
Mice, well, I'm an expert in GI syndrome. I received probably tens of millions of dollars from DoD for this. So GI syndrome in mice, when it becomes lethal, is above 15 grays TBI. Below that, you can rescue from bone marrow transplantation.
Hi. Okay. I'm thinking that, those of us who have not been unlucky enough to receive TBI, we may have a very gradual flow of these ESPCs, which may be well within the capacity of the innate immune system to get rid of. So, supposing we were to identify how to, what particular gene expression profile the DSPC really has, and ways to actually kill them in the same way that we can now kill senescent cells, do you think that would be an adequate solution to all of this nasty stuff?
Well, I want to stress again, 100% or nearly 100% of mesenchymal cells as well as glia in mice which received 13 grays of total body radiation are constantly in DSPC state. Their transcriptional profile does not differ at all from cells because they do not recognize DNA damage, they do not activate any signs of DNA damage unless they are forced to divide. So they live without knowing that. They take advantage of the fact that vast majority of DNA is empty space, and it's very hard to break exactly in the place where you can harm the cell, especially if it is not divided.